Okie dokie. Good afternoon. My name's Kate Cherry. I'm the Regional Director of the Athena Network in Bedfordshire and St Albans. We're the leading business networking and development club for women in the UK. And we're here to support female executives and entrepreneurs or people who are in charge of business development for their companies. And our main aims are providing connections, support and training to you during your professional journey or your business journey. And one thing that we love to do, aside from our networking meetings, is celebrate our members. And so we're here today with Katie Nutting from, is it Obiter Wealth Management, is it, Katie?
It's Obiter.
Obiter.
Yeah.
Sorry, Obiter Wealth.
Close.
Katie's literally just joined our new Bedford group, which runs up at the Woodland Manor Hotel in Clapham, near Bedford. And so we're here today to find out a little bit more about Katie, about her business, what led to her doing what she does today, and finding out about how she helps people. So, Katie, tell us a little bit about your business, what it does, and how do you help people?
Okay, so I'm a financial planner, but I don't always like that term. I think it sounds a bit old-fashioned, and I think that when people say they're seeing their financial planner or their financial advisor, I think they always expect to see a middle-aged man. I think that's just a really, really common conception of it. So that's my title, but what I actually do, I like to say that I help people answer those big life questions, and that for some people that's can I afford to buy a house? Can I afford to buy a second house or a bigger property? When can I retire? Can I afford to have children? Can I send them to private school? How do I pass on money to different generations? So it's just kind of being able to answer the questions that individuals and businesses want to know that feeds into their cash flow.
Brilliant. So as a financial advisor, you must see all sorts of different people. And do you find that younger people tend to not think that they need a financial advisor, or maybe people who don't have so much wealth think they don't need a financial advisor?
Yeah, definitely. So I think most people will come to me when they're thinking about retirement, which can be in their 50s. Sometimes it's a little bit later than that, but it is definitely, it's getting more relevant to younger people now. But I think that a lot of that is parental pressure. So I think, and nowadays, if you are in your 50s and 60s and you're getting financial advice, I might say something about a junior ISA or a lifetime ISA, or the Help to Buy ISA, which is something that's relevant to their children, which they will then give them a bit of a nudge and say, do you know what, even though you might think you're too young, or maybe you think you haven't got enough, you ought to have a conversation to make sure that you're not missing something that could actually make a big difference to you further down the line.
Absolutely. And also, we don't always think of all those aspects that a financial advisor can help with. So, for example, our first exposure as a couple, as a family, was the insurances.
Yes.
The life cover, the unemployment, the critical illness, all of that, and making sure we had all that in check. Because do you find that a lot of people think, oh, it's great, I've got everything I need, and when you have a little review, you find out that, oh, actually.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's quite easy at the time. Say when you buy your first house, a lot of the time the mortgage broker will say, you know, have you thought about life insurance? And it's quite easy to cover yourself and your family if you were to die. And it's really cheap as well. So people are quite happy to take that out. But I was speaking to a couple of people this morning about income protection. And there's such a huge gap now in the market with people not taking out income protection. And I don't know whether that's because we think, you know, in our 20s and 30s that we're invincible. And you just think, well, that's not going to happen to me. You know, I won't be off work for more than a week. I've never had a day off sick in the last 6 years. But you don't actually know when that's going to happen. And I say to clients, you're quite happy to insure a holiday, your phone, which is a couple of £100. You know, you're happy to get car insurance and insure your house. Why wouldn't you insure probably the largest pot of money that you've possibly got available, which is your income? But it's massively under the radar for a lot of people.
Yeah, and also in that situation, our situation was that we got the mortgage, young couple, before we even got married, and which I guess is the case for most people, and then life changes. You then have
Yeah,
children, your income increases, your
yeah,
jobs change, and you don't realize that that little policy you got out with your first mortgage, that needs to change as well.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think that's the beauty of having a financial planner, is we see you through those different stages. And when you've been doing it for 10 years like I have, you've seen people through most of those stages, which is a good thing and a bad thing, I suppose, when it gets to the end. But I have seen people through that first step where they're on the property ladder, all the way through to people passing on money because of ill health, and sadly people passing away. So you get to see people through those stages. Most people run along quite a similar track, so you get used to knowing what could come next that we need to start planning for.
That's it, exactly. So how did you get started in what you do? What's your background?
So my story, I think, comes from way back. So on the subject of protection, my dad ran a very successful business when we were younger. Him and a business partner. My mum didn't work, so she looked after me and my sister. And then my dad died when he was 31. So really young age. You don't expect that. But he'd got no life cover in place, and he had no protection against his business. He didn't have anything in place to do with the shares of the business passing to my mum and my mum being paid out or anything like that. So she was left with what was then a whacking great mortgage, 2 children, and she hadn't worked for many years. So she was really underskilled as well, because she didn't need to at the time. So we were exposed quite early to how important it was to protect your family, because it wasn't, we weren't kind of wrapped in bubble paper. We knew everything that went on, because we saw my mum being at home all the time. So all of a sudden she had 3 jobs. So she used to deliver corporate papers in the morning, she worked in an accounts department in the day, and she used to do debt collecting in the evening.
Oh, wow.
So she's a formidable woman.
A few thankless jobs then.
Yeah, she was crazy with it, and but she did it all because she wanted to support us. But we used to go with her to do the debt collecting, because it used to be mainly it was old people that would rent a colour TV or rent a washing machine, and she would go and collect like £1 a week off them or something. So it was that kind of debt collecting. So we'd go to like little old ladies, and they'd give us bags of sweets, and it was all very nice in that way. But we used to go to some places where she used to say, you need to stay in the car now while I just go to this person's house. And we could see people, peeping through the curtains because they didn't want to answer the door to her because they owed money. And it even from that very young age, I think me and my sister both realised how important it was to not get into debt, because you didn't want my mom knocking on your front door. You didn't. So we both had quite a big exposure to money very early on. So I'd always known that I wanted to have a lot of control over my own finances, which led me to do a maths degree and then get straight into financial services as soon as I graduated. So I think it was kind of laid out for me from quite an early age.
That's an amazing story. And when we say a why, that is an amazing why as well, isn't it? Just
Yeah,
having that.
yeah.
You've been there, and you can sympathise with your clients and the people, whether it's someone very wealthy or someone not so wealthy. You can totally sympathise with the situation.
Yeah.
And exactly that. Your dad was that must have been so hard for you guys, and he was a business owner.
Yeah.
He was successful,
Yeah.
but it just all went because he didn't have the right stuff in place.
Exactly. And you just don't see it coming, and it's very difficult with business partners. And not enough people look at things like partnership protection and shareholder protection in businesses, where I always say it's very easy to value a business when you're both friends and you're both doing well and everything's rosy. It's much easier to value a business and agree at that point that if something happens to either of you, their respective partners get paid what's a fair amount for the business. You can do that when everybody's happy. But if you don't do that, from both sides, nobody knows if they're getting fair value, which can cause a real strain on relationships. Even if, one person is being very generous, there's always that kind of, that grey area that could be sorted out if people addressed it a bit earlier on.
It's exactly the same as expression of wishes and power of attorney and all of these things, isn't it,
Yeah,
as well? And
exactly.
you're saving the people around you some awful trouble down the line, aren't you? I should do what you
Yeah.
do because I'm clearly selling it. But what led to you joining Athena then?
So I love networking. I am that, like, I am a serial networker just because I really love meeting new people and I like hearing people's stories. So I always knew that I wanted to do more networking locally after I'd moved out of London. And I'd always wanted to come into Athena, but everyone always has my spot. It's such a difficult spot to get into because it's a really good way for people in my profession to network. So I was so lucky to think that a new group came up in my area just at the right time. And like I say, I'd visited other groups before, I'd subbed for people. You know, I knew how well the structure worked for me. And you could see whenever you visit groups, you see that people do past business. So I'd always kind of been on the edge of my seat ready to get in. And it just so happens that it's worked now.
Excellent. And because we talk about, you've got your first party business that might be someone around the table who might need you, although we encourage people not to look at the table of members
Yeah,
as, you know, a ready-made set of clients. But there's going to be someone around the table who needs your services. But then also
yeah,
it's their wider network, so that will make them think, oh, hang on, and this, that, and the other, and that situation my friend was in. And it's the
yeah.
more you get to know people, you get thinking, don't you? So what are you looking forward to as part of your membership? Because I would say, you know, what have been the benefits so far? But you literally joined. It was your first month this month,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
yeah.
So what are you looking forward to?
I think for me, getting some local connections is really important for me because, like I say, I mean, I've lived in Bedford for 4 years now, but it's only been the last 12 months that I've worked in Bedford and looked nationally rather than being just based in London. So it's trying to find those local connections as well for me to generate business, but also for me to be able to refer on to people that I trust,
Mm.
which is working really well so far. Like I say, Nikki in the group, she's done some work for some of my clients. Claire's also done some work.
That's
So
our accountant
it's
and our mortgage advisors, yes.
yeah, which are perfect synergies for me. So they've been absolutely brilliant for me to refer my clients to them, and they've done a great job. So having those connections that I know I can rely on
Yeah,
in my business where I have a long-term um, relationship with the client, I've got to get that right. So
that's true.
that's what was really important for me.
That makes a lot of sense actually, because I'm just thinking, well, there are loads of, mortgage advisors and accountants and will writers that you'll meet, but actually it's seeing someone regularly enough that you have the relationship, that you're going to keep the
Yeah.
relationship, and it's strong enough that you want to work with that person long term, because at the end of the day, it's your clients, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. And it's nice to be able to do that and knowing that, you know, we can then pass information between the two of us when the client wants us to. Just makes everybody's life a lot easier.
Absolutely. What tips would you give someone going into business?
Oh gosh.
A woman in particular looking to start their own business. What were your lessons?
I would say know the type of business that you want to be in, because I didn't realise that when I first became a financial planner. I worked in a city firm. We only advised people that had got like £15 million in a pension, and it was a certain type of person, which was great to learn my craft, but it wasn't what I actually wanted to do. And it took me a long time to realise that actually I wanted to do something which was fulfilling for me in every single aspect of what a career is.
Mm.
So I think it's really important to understand who you want to help and who you want to aim your services at, because that really shapes the type of service that you give people. And it comes through that passion, you know, that you're helping the right people. It comes through in the work that you do.
Yeah, and who do you want to be as well, I guess, hey?
Yeah, definitely. How do you want to see yourself? You know, I mean, we were talking before about children. I want my daughter to see the type of people that I help, and I want her to feel proud of that. So I think that's become more important to me as I've had a family. I probably wouldn't have thought about it as deeply if I hadn't have gone through that stage in my life.
Mm, perfect. And so, what's next for you and the business?
So there are two things I am really keen on starting up, which is slightly different to what I do on a day-to-day basis. One of them's aimed at educating children, so children in secondary schools, just about money, because I think we've got a massive gap, and there's a massive failing at the moment for teenagers about their understanding of money. And I think social media has just destroyed people's opinion of what reality is, particularly if you're following people who, you know, the Kardashians and all the rest of it, where you see people with designer clothes and you know, designer watches, private jets and everything. And I think it just gives such a warped perception, and I think it will really fuel an economy of debt for the younger generation. So I'd really like to get into some schools and do some sessions just teaching people about budgeting, you know, giving them a bit more information about managing money and making sure that you don't get yourself into a silly situation.
That's brilliant. I've
So
got
that's
some ideas for you. We'll talk, because I've got some ideas actually around that, because I literally this morning did a talk in a sixth form college. I didn't do a talk, I helped oversee a workshop, so
Yeah.
that's just got me thinking. But that's amazing.
Yeah, brilliant.
What a fantastic story. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to come back on both of us side by side. And thank you everybody for watching. I hope you've enjoyed hearing about Katie and her business and what she does and how she can help people. If you'd like to hear more, Katie, what's the best way to contact you?
It's either email, which is katie.nutting@obiter, with the letters WM at the end, .co.uk, a bit of a mouthful, or you can reach me on my mobile, which is 07854 781 901.
Perfect. And so as for us, we run women's business networking meetings all over Bedfordshire, actually all over the UK, but the ones I run are in Bedford, Boston, Woburn, Salford and Luton, and soon to be launching St Albans and Redbourne in Hertfordshire. So if you'd like any information about those meetings, and if you'd like to see which you can come along to where your profession's not taken, or if you know someone in business, then drop me a note as well. You'll be able to comment underneath on this post. So thank you very much, and have a fantastic end of the week.